Everybody, and welcome to the school committee meeting, January 5th, 2021. At this point, because we will be following after I read into the minutes the opening statement, we will go straight into public comment. And as I like to do, I like to give our public some time to log in. If you go into the school site or the town government site, you will find the link for tonight's meeting. You need to first go on to the link and then sign up through the Zoom meeting as a guest. You will need to sign in with your name and your email, and that will allow you access into the meeting to then raise your hand for public comment. It's going to take me a while to introduce everybody, so I'm hoping that if you do have a comment, this is giving you appropriate time to get sorted out and entered into the meeting. I am Pauline Proch. I'm chair of the Nantucket School Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jennifer Iller, Vice Chair. Okay, Jen hasn't made it yet. Zona Butler.
Zona Butler present.
Welcome. Tim Lepre. Tim, I think you have to unmute. Tim, are you there? Sorry, I'm on a different screen. Tim is wait. Okay, the affirmative. I have a thumbs up. Tim Lepre is present. And Steve Sordovic, secretary.
Affirmative.
Thank you and welcome. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. I will only be calling out individuals who will be presenting tonight. Superintendent Elizabeth Hallett.
Present.
Welcome. School Committee Clerk Logan O'Connor.
Here.
Welcome, Logan. Director of Technology Jennifer Erickson.
Here.
Welcome. Town Administrator Libby Gibson.
Present.
Welcome. Director of Finance for the Town of Nantucket, Brian Turbot.
Here.
Welcome. Nantucket High School Principal Mandy Vassal.
Here.
Welcome, Mandy. Alternative Program Teacher Andrew Vaselli.
Present.
Welcome. And Andrew is also accompanied by some of his students tonight, and we'll hear from them shortly. NES Principal Kim Kubish.
Present.
Welcome, Kim. Intermediate School Principal Eve Marie McNeil.
Present.
Welcome. CPS Principal Michael Horton.
Here.
Welcome, Michael. English Language Learner Director Kelly Cooney.
Present.
Welcome. And Special Education Director Deb Gately.
Present.
Welcome, everybody. I just lost my bit. Okay, this is an open meeting of the Nantucket School Committee, and it is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, Nantucket School Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom webinar app as posted on the town's website and identifying how the public may join. I'd like to at this point call the meeting to order. May I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. May I have your vote, Zona Butler?
Yes.
Tim Lepre,
Yes.
Steve Surdovic,
Yes.
and I'm just checking to see again, Jennifer Illa. This point. Thank you. And Pauline Proch, aye. I'd like to open up for comments from the public, and I will ask Jen Erickson if she would please let me know if there are any public comments coming in. You're not seeing any, Jen? Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes and then we will move on.
So far.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no public comment, I'd like to invite Elizabeth Hallett for her superintendent's report. And I actually would like to ask you, Beth, if you would just go through your entire report, and then I'll ask each individual committee member for comments or questions.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. So I'd like to start with some COVID updates. As everyone is well aware, we began our school, our new year 2021 with remote learning instruction this week. As I mentioned in my communication to staff, families, and the community, the island is dealing with elevated numbers of COVID cases, most likely from the holiday time. So it seems most prudent that we decided to wait a week with remote instruction to see how things played out. And we do have a tentative return date on January 11th, this Monday coming up, based on the health metrics and the recommendations of the Department of Public Health and the hospital and others. I want to thank all of our staff and our administrators who have very gracefully and professionally dealt with this roller coaster of learning models through the course of this year. My sincere hope is that we only have to wait a little while longer before we can really come back to some sense of normalcy. On another note, you will see presented on the screen, we have released a new item to our NPS website, our COVID dashboard. So you will see on the screen here, we have a one slide that presents some weekly data, some metrics that we have compiled. And I have to thank Mr. Steve Surdovic, who has spearheaded this effort. He, along with myself, Sarah Brooks, and our COVID-19 liaison, and Logan O'Connor, have put together this list of data. And if you'll see, there are specific cases with regard to the island positivity rates and positive cases, and also our school community as well. We know that some of these numbers are moving targets, so we plan to update once a week on Mondays as we are currently doing this. And this is the debut, so we certainly know that some changes can be made if necessary. But we hope that the community will appreciate seeing some of the specific numbers, and they can notice where we are at with regard to our school community. I'm happy to take any questions about this at the end. We can certainly go through it. So thank you very much. And thank you again to Steve, to Sarah, and to Logan for having this up. I appreciate it very much. So I'd like to move on to enrollment. As of yesterday, our enrollment numbers for the month of January were down from 1,664 to 1,642. In January, after the holidays, this is kind of to be expected. Families do travel on extended trips for the holidays, and many times that's an international trip. And the expectation is that children are unenrolled for a long period of time. So it's very possible that some of these numbers came from those unenrollments. You will see that most of the withdrawals have been at NES and NIS. We do expect our numbers to grow next month with possible new arrivals and returning families. The next piece is the Student Opportunity Plan. This is something that has been kind of hanging over our heads for a little while. In 2019, legislation was put through Massachusetts, the Massachusetts system, that was called the Student Opportunity Act, or the SOA, which is basically meant to close achievement gaps among student subgroups, such as students with disabilities, different ethnic groups, English learners, socioeconomic status, and those are a few to name. Districts must make a commitment to which subgroups they want to focus on, which evidence-based educational program the district will use to address achievement gaps, and how to monitor success through the new Student Opportunity Plan. And the Student Opportunity Plan is based on the increase of Chapter 70 funds for FY 2021. Last year, FY21, due to the pandemic and the continued delay in the state budget approval, SOA plans were pushed to the end of the year, and now to the new year. And as there were very drastic changes and cuts across the state, things were delayed. While we originally thought that we would be getting the minimum increase of $30 per pupil in our FY21 Chapter 70 budget, amounting to approximately $49,000, as was expected, that completely changed with the budget, and Chapter 70 funds were cut. So our allocation was level funded without any increase. So although we are not receiving any increases from Chapter 70, we are still required to share a plan that outlines how we hope to close those persisting disparities in our student achievement. So really, it's more of a formality than anything else. We will not be receiving any additional funds this year. We will just be receiving our level funding Chapter 70 budget funding. So this plan must still be voted on by school committee. So in the following days, I will share the plan and the notes from the plan that Mr. Kozer and I actually prepared long ago to submit last year. And this plan focuses on the increased access of pre-kindergarten classes in the school district. Since this plan is actually submitted in survey format, meaning there's a lot of cutting and pasting going on, I will share an SOA plan document that we put together, and that's what I will be using to put into the survey. The vote for approval will be at our next school committee meeting on January 21st. So just an update on the SOA plan. And finally, I want to thank some very important people on behalf of the Nantucket Public Schools. I really want to express my sincere gratitude to several community members who have really been more than generous to our students in the last month. Thank you so much to John and Carolyn Keene and all of the staff at Kitty Murtaugh for jumping to the rescue to provide delicious lunches for 2 days in December, early December, during remote instruction when our cafeteria workers were asked to quarantine pending COVID exposure. We are so very thankful for the community spirit and willingness to save the day, so to speak. So thank you again, John and Carolyn, for that, and your staff. I also want to thank Tom Brissett and the Nantucket Golf Club Foundation and the Barry Lipp Foundation for their wonderful offering of the New York City Ballet's virtual performance of the Nutcracker that was offered to each and every Nantucket Public Schools family for free. What a wonderful treat to be able to see such a magnificent stage performance of this memorable ballet. I do hope that as many children as possible and their families were able to enjoy this performance. And I thank you again very much for this wonderful special gift. So that's all, and I'm happy to entertain questions.
That's terrific. Thank you, Beth. Before we go on to questions and comments, I just want to do a roll call for Jennifer Ella, Vice President. Can you please
Present.
roll call and acceptance of the agenda?
So moved.
Hi, thank you. Let's go to Steve. Would you like to have comments or questions for Beth?
No, I'm good. I'm glad the COVID dashboard is up and running. It's a little bit different as of today, but the hospital didn't actually report any results. So the numbers are virtually the same today as they were yesterday. We'll see the next couple of days. They've got 240 or 50 cases pending, so we'll be watching it every day.
Thank you, Steve. And again, I thank you for doing that. I think it's a valuable tool for our district. Tim, any questions, comments?
At this time, no, but I think, Steve, you want to say tests that are out there are not cases.
I'm sorry, I don't
Thank you.
understand what I said wrong.
Well, you said cases and you meant tests.
Oh, pending.
Yes.
Sorry, yes. Tests.
Thank you, Dr. Lepre. Zona Butler.
I just want to say thank you to Beth for the thank yous. We are so appreciative of this community and how it jumps in to help the kids. I just think that's just wonderful. The dashboard, Steve, and you guys, that's great information. I just love seeing it like that. So hopefully we'll keep that up. And enrollment, again, thanks for the explanations. It's always my concern is what the numbers mean when they change so much. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Zona. Janella.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Okay, moving on, I'd like to invite Town Administrator Libby Gibson and our Finance Director Brian Turbot to run us through the Town of Nantucket budget presentation, please.
Okay, thank you all very much. Happy New Year, and thank you for having us. We do have a PowerPoint, but I don't know if you all are putting it up or should we share our screen?
Jen, do you have it?
I don't have a PowerPoint. I have a PDF file. So maybe if you have the PowerPoint, you might want to do it.
I think it's the PDF file, actually.
Okay. I can do that for you if you'd like.
It's just a PowerPoint in PDF. I think. That'd be great, Jen, if you could. Let me just get back to. Sorry, technical difficulty here.
Is that good?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. That's our budget message. There should also be an actual PDF to PowerPoint in the packet. Okay.
Better? Oh, it didn't share. I'm sorry.
While Jen is getting it up, just a little bit of intro remarks. Section 4.2D3 of the town charter requires the town manager to prepare and submit to the select board an annual operating budget. We think we gave you two documents for tonight, the PowerPoint PDF and a budget message, which is still in draft form. The budget message is a pretty lengthy document that explains our recommendations, projections, and various issues in detail. And that will be posted on the town website by the end of the week. Our intent for tonight is to take you all through our PowerPoint, which contains an overview of updated projections, our recommendations, next steps. Thank you very much, Jen. There we go. A lot of the detail, as I mentioned, is in the budget message, which is a separate document. Our fiscal 22 budget process began with a review of preliminary projected expenses and revenues with the Finance Committee on September 21st, the Select Board on September 23rd. We issued budget instructions to the town departments on September 25th, and we reviewed every general fund departmental budget from mid-October through November. We met with the school more than one time about their budget. We had an ad hoc budget work group meeting on November 16th. That work group is comprised of the chairs and vice chairs of the Select Board, School Committee, Finance Committee, the School Superintendent, Director of Municipal Finance, and Town Manager. Along the way through our budget development process, we take in, seek out, review, analyze new or additional information. So that slide 2, Jen, if you are able to get to that one. I think it's back 1. Yeah, there we go. Our budget objectives for fiscal 22 were to keep our operating budget within projected revenue, address priorities in the board's strategic plan, which are listed there, address emerging PFAS issues. I don't know if you all have been burdened with PFAS yet, but we have been, and you can read about it in the paper and on the town website, because now we have a dedicated webpage to it, and we're spending a lot of time on it. We have continued response to COVID-19, and we are trying to maintain flexibility with the levy limit and the use of free cash with our budget. In other words, we're trying not to spend every penny of projected revenue. The next couple slides, slides 3 and 4, simply show initiatives that are specific to the strategic plan that are recommended in the fiscal 22 budget and or are ongoing. COVID response items right here on slide 4. But PFAS issues are just mentioned here. Slide 5 lists a number of initiatives already underway. These will continue into fiscal 22, as well as opportunities that we are exploring. I won't take you through all of this as I did with the select board, because they're probably not so much of interest to the school committee, but as you can see, they do relate to the community, and some may have an impact on the school, such as the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, the municipal facilities master plan, possibly the sustainability office, and associated projects. Also, parks and recreation, the community school, I should mention that we are having some discussions with school staff as to the possibility of, as to exploring the activities that those groups take on, whether there's duplication, whether there are opportunities that we could take advantage of that relieves the school of some of the administrative burden or all of the administrative burden potentially of the community school, and put it potentially under the town umbrella. We're exploring it. It is not a done deal. It is not written in stone, but there are some discussions that we think would be beneficial overall to the community if we can perhaps work something out where the community school maybe takes on some park and recreational activities, maintains what the community school is all about, but potentially maybe moves to a different home. And I think we want to be very sure that if we are going to really explore this, that we are cognizant of what the community school was meant to be in the first place. And some of that has changed since 1986, 7-ish, when it was first established, including school security issues, obviously curriculum issues that require more space. COVID is not going to go away anytime in the immediate future, and we have needs on our end as well. So there's benefits potentially to both sides. So we've been talking with Tracy a bit, and we're working on what else to explore in that area. So just FYI there. Slide, is that slide 6? Several actions we take on an ongoing basis to reduce expenses, increase efficiencies, and transparency. Those are listed here. While COVID-19 has presented numerous challenges, there may be some benefits that we could realize going forward that we are going to be exploring. There may be, educational opportunities that we can take advantage of more online now rather than sending people to places, things like that. I'm sure you all are probably talking about the same kind of things. Brian, the finance director, is going to take us through the next few slides, slides 7 to 14.
Thank you, Libby, and thank you to the school committee for giving us this opportunity to come and present the budget to you tonight. Revenue, we're projecting $111,382,000 is the amount of revenue that we could raise for fiscal 22. The recommendation and projected expenses that we presented to the select board is $110,746,000. As it stands today, that would leave projected unused levy capacity of $635,000. And we are carrying that number currently because we do fund two enterprise funds. One we'll discuss a little bit more in greater detail in the presentation. However, the solid waste enterprise fund may need additional subsidies above and beyond what we currently have projected as we move through and refine those numbers based on the actuals for actual receipts there for this year. So we have, consistent with our practice in the past, we have saved or kept unused some percentage of unused levy capacity to deal with unanticipated or unexpected issues that may arise between now and town meeting, and certainly the solid waste enterprise fund at this point may be one of them, although we're certainly hoping that it does not. Next slide, Jen, if you wouldn't mind, please. So this slide compares what we raised and appropriated for fiscal 21. It's consistent with what was done at the June 25th, 2020 annual town meeting. Fiscal 22 shows the projected 110 million. It is a 6.6% increase to revenue and to expenses. We have, just to let you know, we have believed and we are comfortable we've raised the rooms estimate from the 1.9 million that we had projected for 21. We reconfigured everything to approximately 4.5 million and have included meals tax back last year. As many of you will recall, when we went through what we thought was going to happen, we were not sure what would happen with restaurant service on the island, so we actually eliminated the potential for that revenue as a safety measure to ensure that we didn't over project the revenue. We are comfortable adding back money into those accounts at this point for fiscal 22. Next slide, Jen, please. Thank you. The slide here is graph, just shows where the projected revenue sources come from and the percentage. As typical, tax revenue consistently is between 86 to 88% of the revenue. Rooms and meals makes up about 5%, and then state aid makes up the next largest portion at 4%. Next slide, please. Thank you, Jen. Projected expenses breaks down special appropriations, which consists of the amount to CRC, the county, and the appropriations to RM home and to the solid waste enterprise fund. Municipal departments, school department, and then non-departmental is debt service, retirement, and health insurance. Next slide. So in the next few slides, we take you through the recommendations. So for town operational expenses, we have recommended $8,803,000. There's $1.3 million of operational EIRs in the $8.8 million. Town salaries, we have projected $21,645,000, with $604,000 of that being new EIR personnel added through EIRs. School operational expenses, based on the discussion with both the school chief financial officer and the superintendent, we have recommended and projected $5,536,000 for operational expenses, which does include $225,000 of expense increase requests into that number. Can you scroll down? Thanks, John. There's a projected salaries of $27,340,000, and I believe either superintendent or chief financial officer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that includes a recommendation of $500,000 for new positions that was requested, and we did recommend and include in the calculation. Next slide, please. Thank you. Health insurance, we're projecting within the rate itself, we're projecting actually a 10% rate increase, but due to the split in the makeup between family and individual plans and changes, whether employees are retiring or not, the actual projection comes to just over 7% increase in actual dollars, but the rate has, based on the most recent data that we discussion with our consultant, still projecting a 10% increase at this point. General insurance, which makes up the property insurance, liability, auto, and all other insurances, we've projected an 18% increase based on the catastrophic nature of the storm season last year, which was the 7th most expensive in history due to property damage. I did receive an email today, 18% might be a little bit low, but we're certainly working with the insurance carriers and hope to keep it within what we projected. Debt service is 10,008,000, which is per the waterfall schedule that's been established, and as we add debt to add permanently borrow previously authorized debt authorizations. Retirement, 5,646,000 to Barnstable County. It's consistent at an 8.5% increase, which is consistent with their 20-year funding schedule, which would eliminate or reduce the unfunded liability in 2038. Enterprise fund subsidies of 10,002,000, which is a 1.1 or 1.61% increase. Next slide, please. Health and Human Services, we have projected the same 650,000 that we funded in fiscal 21. The county assessment, based on the mechanism and the way that we need to fund it, is increased by at $174,455, excuse me, which is a 2.5% increase. Reserve fund, no change at 500,000. Unpaid bills, no change with the 20,000. Other post-employment benefits, most of you may recall during the run up to the June 25th town meeting, we eliminated the payment into the reserve, the trust fund for OPEB. We're recommending that we restart that, which is consistent with the discussions that we had last year. There are no overlay or other deficits. Cherry sheet charges, now that the budget is final, we know that $984,563 is accurate. And we have recommended, consistent with last year, $550,000 to the community school. And minimum capital funding, which is 1% of prior year local estimated receipts and real and personal property tax receipts of $974,146, which brings us to the $110,746,000 recommended budget. Are you taking this slide?
Yeah, I'm going to do this one, these couple, and then this one, and then the next one. So we have expense increase requests, as you probably have a process for yours as well. And what our process involves is reviewing all of the ones submitted by the departments, and they, submit quite a few. And our review is based on the following criteria: whether or not the item is legally mandated, whether or not it is a request that supports the board's strategic plan and or are recommended in our 2018 staffing study, whether or not it improves departmental operations or efficiencies, whether it's necessary to support approved new programming or existing programming, or whether it provides continuity of operations. We rank each EIR, expense increase request, according to a point system, and we make our recommendations following that process. I wasn't planning on taking you through all of them. I would most certainly be happy to if you would like to hear them, but I wasn't going to take you through in the interest of time, but I'm happy to if you want me to. Otherwise, Brian, you have slides 16 and 17. Those are them there, the EIRs.
Sorry, I was on mute. 1,333,000 we are projecting coming from tax levy and other general revenues. Free cash of 925,000. Capital exclusion for 2 vehicles that fall below the capital threshold to be part of the Capcom review in the amount of 70,000. Special revenue funds in the amount of 270,000, which are the beach revolver and the ferry embarkation fee. Beach revolver is for lifeguards, and the ferry embarkation fee is where we pay the community service officers out of. And then we have listed a borrowing here. As the town manager discussed and mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, as everybody's aware, the town certainly is dealing with a PFAS issue. And so we will be recommending a borrowing authorization at town meeting for the initial projection of $500,000. So total all funding for sources, $3,098,553. Next slide. Thank you, Jen. Free cash. General fund certified free cash was certified in October. It was certified at $9,655,000. We have recommended one-time expense increase request in the general fund budget of $925,000. In discussion with the school, we have also recommended a one-time increase for one-time expenses that they have asked for this year in the amount of $150,000, which is we are recommending funding from free cash. Town and school capital requests, which have gone through capital program committee review in the amount of $4,992,254. Unpaid bills, $20,000. And our island home of $3.5 million. We will discuss this certainly a little bit more in a slide detailing what's outstanding and unknown at this point in time. Town administration is recommending we will be recommending an operating override of $5 million. However, because the operating override is a two-step process, we have chosen to reserve $3.5 million of free cash, which is exactly the amount of free cash that we transferred last year to our island home. So if the override does not pass, we would have to have a meeting to fund that with free cash and then potentially retained earnings out of their operating budget. So as it stands now, with all the pledges or expectations usage of free cash, we are currently left with $67,000 in unallocated free cash. Did you want me to, Libby, am I doing this one? I think you're on mute.
Damn it, I hate that. Sorry, I'm always cursing people who do that. Let me start over. The fiscal 22 outstanding items and current unknowns are shown here. As Brian mentioned, we are recommending a targeted override, operating override, specific to the island home, so that we can have a permanent dedicated funding source for that operation. The select board has had quite a bit of discussion this year about this override and in prior years. We, again, are recommending it to cover the general fund subsidy to the island home and to lessen or eliminate our reliance on retained earnings. State aid is always a concern. I think the state now has finalized its fiscal 22 budget, right, Brian? And we think these numbers are level funded?
They have finalized the fiscal 21 budget. They have not announced what the fiscal 22 revenue expected increase is. We have level funded state aid in this budget based on what they did in 21, with the expectation that they would at a minimum do the same into fiscal 22 at this point.
And that is what we're hoping. However, there are some rather dire sounding revenue projections coming out of the state at the moment. Harbor Place is a project that remains a bit unknown at this point. This is a project down on the waterfront that we've been working on with a private developer for several years now. Citizen warrant articles, there may be potential cost impacts with some of these articles. We have not worked them into our recommendations at all. Some come with specific dollar amounts, others do not, but they may have a cost impact, and we're going to need to take a look at what some of those might be. Fee increases, this is something we look at annually. Should we increase some local fees? We've reviewed the possibility of a sort of a CPI across the board type of increase for town fees, and at best that might generate between $50,000 to $100,000. And we sometimes get feedback that people feel nickeled and dimed about that. And also we have to be cautious about fee increases because they need to be tied to a documentable increase in town resources, costs, or services, not just because we need more revenue. Also, the timing of fee increases is probably not a good idea right now. The Steamship Authority deficit, I hesitate to even mention those words, but while it's resolved for fiscal 20, it does remain something of a concern for fiscal 21 and 22. We are hopeful it will not be an issue. If it is, pursuant to the Steamship Authority enabling legislation, Nantucket is responsible for 35% of any deficit. There hasn't been a deficit in the Steamship Authority since like 1960 something ish. If the NRTA experiences a deficit for fiscal 21, we again hope it will be able to be covered through other means, but it's a bit early to determine if that is going to be an issue. PFAS and COVID-19 costs remain a high concern, largely unknown. our diversity, equity, and inclusion office, DEI office, we were able to fund a director position for that new position in our current budget. However, there may be some other costs associated with some anticipated work to be initiated, such as review of town policies and programs that we may want to engage professional assistance for that could require additional funding. The remaining items here, I won't necessarily go through every one of them, but hopefully they're a little bit self-explanatory. Short-term rentals is an issue that we are monitoring. There is a warrant article that would restrict them somewhat, and we're monitoring what revenue came in fiscal 21 and whether or not that is something to rely on going forward, given the abnormality of this year. We came up with, Greg did, thank you, Greg, this phrase, the new growth bubble burst, and that was sort of an attention getter, but as I think we all know, the real estate market right now is on fire, and that cannot last forever. So at some point, are we going to see that in a dramatic fashion? And hopefully not, but it's, again, a item we need to keep an eye on. Potential airport deficit, again, due to COVID-19, potentially, or PFAS, that is something that we're monitoring. There is a pending police reform bill. I think actually it now has been signed into law, I think. I haven't been able to track it in the last couple of weeks, but there will be some associated costs depending on when things become effective that will impact town operations. And we have a Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee that came up with an interim recommendation relating to certain types of coastal town projects and certain types of other projects that may impact operating budgets in the near future until we can get a handle on them. Yes, thank you. Future potential costs. A number of future potential costs are listed here. We have discussed most of these within the last year at board meetings. The commuter shuttle is an unknown right now, that third bullet there. We do not have funding currently projected for fiscal 22. And the rest of the items are just items that may cost something going forward. Brian, were you going to mention solid waste?
Well, I did mention it about the unused levy capacity.
Okay. Yep.
So it is certainly due to COVID and things of that nature and the slowdown, we're really paying attention to those revenues to see, which is why we had left that unused levy capacity there. And as we note in this slide, the current contract does expire in 2025. So that's something that we're paying attention to and what that might look like moving into the future.
And the solid waste budget does have a couple of overrides already associated with it that increased by 2.5% per year. However, as Brian noted, there are some issues with solid waste management because of COVID. Next slide, I think, is that next steps? Yeah. So this slide is a little bit dated because obviously we've already given our presentation to the board. Now we're giving it to you. The select board has a public hearing on the budget at its meeting tomorrow night. And we will be going to the finance committee later in January to review budgets and departmental budgets with them, as will the school. And we now have actually changed, hopefully you know this, our annual town meeting date from April 5th to June 5th. And as a result, the entire timeline is shifting a bit, about a month out. And you all will get a copy of that very shortly. The select board is talking about it tomorrow night. And it does give us a bit more time, but I don't want to get too carried away with, oh, we have all this extra time now, because that's going to lead to a bit of disaster. So we're trying to be very disciplined to stick with all of the reviews and approvals that need to happen and not dilly-dally around with getting them done. So I think the school actually already has a date with FinCom. I don't have it right in front of me, but I don't think that's changed. Has it changed, Brian? Do you remember?
I don't believe that the school date has changed. That's correct, Libby.
I think the school generally is later in the process anyway. And I think that's it. Brian, unless you want to add anything, and we're happy to answer any questions. The rest of the slides are just backup.
Thank you very much. I would ask if you wouldn't mind to wait a minute, and I'll ask the committee if they have questions or comments. Zona, would you like to go first, please?
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Zona. Tim?
No questions right now. I want to digest it.
Thank you. Jen?
No questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Jen. Steve?
Yeah, it was a lot to digest, but I did have a couple of questions. On the island home override, what is the timing of that now? I think I recall that it was already voted favorably once by the town. Is it going to be on the warrant for the town meeting on June 5th?
Yes, well, if the select board and the finance committee so approve it to be, actually what happened was there was a ballot question that was approved. Everything was all messed up with the town meeting last year because of COVID. So we ended up having to do the town election prior to the town meeting. So the ballot questions came first rather than the other way around, which is the way they usually are. So we did not have the benefit last year of having the town meeting discussions prior to the election. So the ballot questions proceeded on, and that particular one for the island home did get approved. However, the associated town meeting vote did not happen because the select board took off almost all, if not all, Brian, I can't even remember, of the ballot question companion warrant articles because of COVID and because of the uncertainty with the economy. So it needs to be voted all over again is the answer to that question.
Sorry, I didn't realize that calling it a ballot question would make it more clear, but that is what I was asking. That will, if it is approved at town meeting, have to go to another ballot question?
Correct.
Is that the idea? And when, if you have a clue, would that be?
Thank you. Good question, Steve. So the town meeting is now rescheduled to June 5th. The town election is now rescheduled to, I believe it is Tuesday, June 15th. So what will happen is the ballot will be printed with the ballot questions that are required to be companions to the town meeting votes. And let me just double check here. Tuesday, June 15th will be the election. And as an aside, this might impact you all a little bit, the nomination papers for the election will not be due till later. Town clerk is working on that date now.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I appreciate when I was reading through the documentation that the town is hopeful if this override passes that some of that additional available thing can be allocated to the schools. And you know that I'm going to say we need it. So I'm very much looking forward to that possibility. I appreciate that it was in, can't remember whether it was your recommendations or your budget message, but I think that's where I saw it. So thanks for that. And then one last, and that's, I'll admit I didn't completely follow what you were talking about doing with the community school, but at some point for that to happen, would there have to be school committee approval?
I would imagine yes. I don't think we can be, just done without any types of approvals like that. I'm not quite sure if it requires a town meeting vote. Again, that's all part of the exploring of this. But basically, Steve, what I was trying to say without sounding definitive about it, because it is not definitive yet, is the town would like to explore the possibility of having the community school come under the umbrella of town administration and combine the park and rec function with the community school. However, there may be some issues to resolve in order for that to happen. And we would, of course, want to make sure the school committee is very comfortable with that. And we were in our this is very preliminary right now. In our very preliminary conversations, we have been thinking that this might be a load off the school a little bit because of all of the things that you are dealing with now and are likely to be dealing with in the foreseeable future. And we have the need for an established system for programming and registration, signups, things like that, that is already in place. And why would we need to reinvent that when it already exists in a town?
No, I understood the general gist.
Okay,
My implication was there would have to be quite a bit more information
yes,
before it's finalized. And I would assume that would have to come to the school committee for approval since they're under our umbrella now. Thank you.
absolutely. Yep.
Yep. Thank you,
Well,
Stephen, and thank
all
you
I
for that
have, Madam
question, because
Chair.
I too just had, sorry?
I said,
Can
believe it or
you
not,
hear
that's all I
me
have.
all? Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, I was going to have a question or just a comment around the school committee discussing the community school. I go back to my many conversations with Glenn Field around that when I was at the community school. So I'd be very interested in just learning more about those discussions. I do have a question. I know the Diversity and Equity Inclusion Department. I know you had a cancer. Is that department up and running currently, or are you? Where, could you just fill me in a little bit on where that is?
Yeah,
please?
we are in the process of finalizing interviews with finalists and hope to make a hiring decision within the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. Great. Thank you very
Actually,
much.
Madam Chair, I forgot to ask something. It's an
Steve?
easy question,
Yes.
I think, if I may. Does our
Yes, you may,
budget,
Steve.
as it's being presented to us tonight, Libby and Brian, does that comport with the allocation that you're recommending? Those numbers match?
Yes, they do.
Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Libby and Brian, for doing a great presentation. And I appreciate all the work that you both put into this, not only for the school, but for the town. So thank you. And please feel free to sign off after this.
Okay, thank you all very much. And thank you to your all hard work. I know that you have been under a massive amount of strain and pressure. We all have, but I don't know how all the teachers and all of you are managing, but you're doing a fantastic job. And thank you very much to Beth and the principals. Very much appreciated. And the teachers, of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Libby, for saying that. Thank you. Okay, have a good night.
Thank you.
I'd love to, thank you, Brian. And our alternative program teacher, Andrew Vaselli, and I know that he has some of his students with him. So I'll leave it in your hands, Mandy and Andrew. Welcome.
Thank you. Mandy, are you going or would you like me to go?
I was going to ask, did you want me to introduce Andrew? So it's my pleasure to
Certainly. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, thank you. It's certainly my pleasure to introduce Mr. Fiscal and allow him the opportunity to brag about his program. In the short time that I've been at Nantucket High School so far, I have seen a tremendous amount of work that he's done, and his conscientious passion for working with his students and making sure that they have the resources and support that they need. And that's exactly what he's going to tell you about tonight. And I expect his students will also praise his work. So, Mr. Fiscal, I'll turn it over to you. And thank you very much for all that you do for our students.
Thank you. Principal Vassal. I appreciate that. Jen Saradellis, I have to thank her as well, because what we do in the program wouldn't be possible without her work and her support. And I think everything that we do and try to do with the kids is really a wraparound. And then with Mandy coming on board and her vision of working with students, it's just really kind of meshed perfectly with what we have in place. And then her vision moving forward, and Deb Gately's as well, is I'm really excited about it. I think Libby said it, that this is hard. It's hard on teachers. It's hard on kids. But, you know, I think we're all kind of plugging away and moving through this. So I've got 3 kids here. One of them, their microphone doesn't work. So he texted me what he wants me to say. I'm going to just give a brief overview of my program and then let the kids get in here, because they've had to listen to this fascinating discussion of town policy and politics. And they're texting me telling me how fascinating that this is. So we're going to have a big discussion about this tomorrow during class. I'm excited about that. So Jen, are you going to throw up a PowerPoint? Do you want the PowerPoint to be shown? It's up to you guys. I know the school committee's already seen
Yes,
it.
that would be great if you've got. Thank you. Yeah, that would be great, Andrew.
I don't have it. If someone wants to email it to me, I'm happy to present it for you.
Okay. Maybe Logan can. I'll just run through. So we talked about in the PowerPoint that was sent to the school committee, we talked about the program mission, and really the basis of the mission of the program comes down to one thing, and it's relationship building and making sure that the staff that work with the kids and the kids who come into the program, and then the families, it's all about developing that relationship and that collaboration and making sure that everyone understands that we're one team working together. So everything we do in the classroom is student centered. It's based on the student needs. You know, in my notes for this, I wrote down in all caps that the students are really the teachers. And as much as kind of have an idea of how a year is going to go in terms of students that we receive, every student's different. So we're really taking our cues from them and what they need, and they're the truth tellers, and they're explaining what works best for them. And so if we have 10 kids, there's 10 different approaches for the kids, which I think every teacher would acknowledge that. Anyways, so the program, we really want to have the kids passing 85 to 100% of their classes, which is anywhere between 5 to 7 of all of their classes. And that's the goal that we're really trying to get the kids to focus on for academic success. And really what we can't do is get them to that level of success without them believing in themselves and understanding that putting little hard work into showing up, putting in effort, participating, self-advocacy. That's really the premise of what we're trying to drive forward. And then one of the other missions, and I can't be remiss without talking about this, is our collaboration with Egan Maritime and our boat building program. And we started off doing models. And this year we actually got, and there's a slide later on, we've got some dories, and we're building those, and the kids are driving it, and Evan comes in and had been coming in and working with the kids and really letting the kids take the lead. And it's that kind of leadership from behind model where the kids really are hands-on workers and learners, and they're understanding what needs to happen. And we're just kind of guiding that ship forward, literally and figuratively. So our program beliefs are academic success. Obviously, we want our kids passing all their classes, but not without the hard work. And we understand that success doesn't mean you pass all your classes. There's going to be failures in order for them to achieve those successes down the road. And that's okay. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're not looking at one quarter. We're not looking at one semester. We're looking at their entire scope of what they're doing in their high school career. We really want the kids to show up on an everyday basis. And that's one of the hard things, especially now. Attendance is really difficult during COVID and tracking everyone down, and kids are having a hard time either logging in because they don't want to, or because computer issues, whatever, number of things. But on a good day, when everyone's live and in person, attendance is an issue for kids. So again, giving them a place to come and feel safe and feel respected and trusted, and know that they have a voice is key and paramount to what we do. And I think that's a top-down thing from the principal, assistant principal, all the way down to every teacher who works with these kids. And we really want these kids to understand that their social emotional well-being is at the center of what we're doing. Our referral process, and we're going to talk about this because I know we're going to start updating, but we get referrals from teachers. We have the SST, which meets every other week, which talks about students, any student coming back from out of district for whatever reason. We may step them in to my program first and then back into the inclusion classes. Guidance plays a huge part in it. And then obviously Jen and Mandy have final say on who comes into the program, and they've been awesome gatekeepers and protectors of the program. And I really am appreciative of that. So what the program offers is traditional classroom. I teach study skills class, but I also teach an essentials of biology class in there. I have co-taught English classes, history classes, whatever the students need. If they're having difficulty being in that mainstream class, we'll pull them out, work with them one-on-one until they're more comfortable developing. Again, that's self-confidence to get back into the classroom, to be amongst their peers and get in there. And that's the ultimate goal, is to get them back into those classes. Also, we use an online system called Apex Online Learning. We've been using that for the last couple of years. Kids have had real success with it for credit recovery. We can do a combination of straight online classes where it's strictly independent, where a student can finish a class as quickly as they want. They can draw it out as long as they want. I monitor that class. Or we'll take a combination of the two, where we'll use some of the online class and I'll teach some of the live material to them. So they're kind of getting all aspects of it. And then kids who need credit recovery for whatever reason, and there's a multitude of reasons that I work with kids who wouldn't fit your typical program model for that. So far, 45 kids, students enrolled in the program in 21 separate classes. I have 14 Apex classes, and then also servicing 11 AP and honors students through the program in various capacities. So we've got obviously small, we try to keep it small group. I just got an email today from somebody who said my advisory bumped up to some astronomical number, which is kind of laughable, but it just shows you the need of what the kids require right now. And we're happy to support them any way that we can. So in the space that we took, which was the old superintendent's office, we have when we're live, we have 2 alternative spaces for kids for small group work, process work. One of the rooms is manned by a TA, which is the SSC. And then we have our major classroom so that we can fit all the kids in there, socially distanced, of course. And give them what they need. And some kids, they need to come in, they need to watch a movie. Some kids need to come in and they need to pound out work, and whatever it is their need. Again, we're taking the lead from them and kind of guiding them through. We know what their goal is of the academics that needs to get done, but when you push, we all know, if we're a parent, if we're a teacher, that where that gets us, and it doesn't get us very far. So again, trying to give the kids what they need at the different times, and always done with positive reinforcement. I shouldn't say always, because we're all human, but majority of the time, positive reinforcement. Behavioral expectations is a little different right now during COVID, obviously, but really what we're just trying to do is have the kids be kind to themselves and kind to everyone else, and show a lot of respect towards their teachers, towards their peers, so that they're learning to develop their own self-respect. And then we've got this great model set up where our kids are able to go and work with Kylie Borges's IDSC kids, and formerly Casey Cordone's kids. And Casey was really the one who spearheaded that, is getting our program kids in there, working with them in any capacity at all, be it cooking, academic classes, PE classes, or if my students are done with their classwork, they can go in there and work with those students. And it opens their eyes to a bigger world and shows them that life is really good, and they love going in there, and it's an awesome collaboration between the two. So And obviously, here we go. So here's the boat that Egan Maritime provided for us, and these kids built this from scratch. They cut all the wire, they put everything together. We got sent back on our second postponement. So we were getting ready to epoxy it and put it all together, but we've had the luxury of having some Egan staff come in and join us. Superintendents come in, the principals come in, assistant principals come in to see it. Some teachers have walked by. It's pretty awesome. The kids really, truly enjoy it. And it's kind of a, that alternative classroom setting where they're, just kind of get to be hands-on, and it's really been a benefit for the kids to be able to work in this capacity. The next slide, I believe, is a video. And maybe we could show that at the end. I really want to get to the kids talking. So the quarterly performance, the next slide, Jen, is for the first quarter, we were actually, it's surprising because our numbers with our enrollment was higher, and I think the level of need obviously is higher. But this is a credit to the students in their understanding of what they need to do, and especially in this time of crisis. This is the highest first quarter passing rate I believe we've ever had in our program. It's absolutely phenomenal. So it passed 86% of all of their classes. This goes to show you that the students understand that they have to put work in. They understand that they have to work with the teachers and advocate for themselves. So this has been pretty huge. Really happy about that. The number that you see on the bottom for quarter two, that was right before we left for break. And that number, depending on what happens over the course of it, it's either going to skyrocket or unfortunately it's going to plummet, because after a vacation, we kind of get a dip. And that's just the reality of school life, is that we take some time to get back on the rails after a break and to get that consistent approach again. But I'm confident by the end of quarter four, we'll be exactly where we'll need to be, in fact, surpassing that. So hopefully my goal is that we're above 90, almost 95% of passing all of our classes by quarter four. But again, it just shows you the work that the kids put in. And when they get to speak, you'll understand, because they work hard. They really work hard. And for me, to be able to watch them in this capacity, it blows my mind, because they're going through more than any students have ever gone through, and they persevere. They show up every day. They have a smile on their face. They're happy to be here. And they're doing the hardest work that's ever been asked of them, because they're sitting in their houses doing this on their own. And kudos to them. And I hope we all remember that. Okay. So the last slide is the goals for the future. So we're going to work on, I think Deb Gately and the superintendent, Dr. Hallett, have put together a study group to look at referral process and program criteria for all the programs in the different schools. So hopefully we'll be able to update what students come in and who we're servicing. I'd like to be able to establish I don't want to call it a feeder program, because we don't want more kids. The goal is to eradicate the programs, but to maybe branch down from what I do down into CPS. And that'll be something that we talk about with Mr. Horton down there. My goal is to transition the freshmen and sophomores out of program life a little quicker, a little sooner than we have been, because some kids they want to hang on to that safety net. I love hanging on to them, and I still work with kids that I don't really work with anymore, who aren't on the rolls. But to get them back into that inclusion setting as quickly as possible. Obviously, increasing academic expectations. My ultimate goal would be 100% of the kids. If that's a possibility, we want that. Not sure what that will look like. Semester enrollments, there's been some discussion about speeding up, and we only bring kids in for a short amount of time. So that's something that we would be working on as well, especially with the transition of the freshmen and sophomores a little bit quicker. Program development, adding teachers. So maybe this goes in line with what the budget presentation was, of adding some more program teachers, where we're teaching all the core curriculum content. We're keeping the kids in the program fully for a 2-year program, and then getting them out. That would be great. Student internships. We kind of do a school to career program right now. And I'd like to branch that out and get more island businesses and vocational programs and tie into that as much as we can. And Pauline Proch has been mentioning that to me for years. And, I'd love to see that move forward. So I think that's it for my piece. It truly is a pleasure to be able to work with these kids on a daily basis. It's rewarding, and it's pretty awesome to see these kids each and every day, and the amount of effort that they put in. And so I'm going to turn it over. I have 3 kids here. Shane Hanlon is the one whose microphone's not working, Evie Scarlett, and Cesar Lopez. So I'm going to lead off with Cesar. So if he's out there, Cesar, why don't you take over?
Hi, good evening. My name is Cesar Lopez. I just want to tell you that the school program that Mr. Baselli offered me I'm really grateful for him, that he helped me a lot, especially that I was supposed to graduate last year, but I didn't because I dropped out. I had a little problem with some teachers, and I thought the best decision was to drop out, just work. But I really wanted to finish school. I wanted to make my parents proud of me that I finished, that they did some work brought me here and have a better life. So I talked to Mr. Baselli, the school principal, that I want to finish it. And we had a little conversation with him, and we came to the school program he offered me, that he was going to give me some time to do my work, to keep up with all my homework. And I don't know, just like see the goals that I have on me to finish and make a plan to reach my goal, finish school. And the opportunity he offered me to be a better person, to be able to achieve my goal with my work. He's like kind of my father in there. He support me, like, keep pushing hard, keep doing it, you're gonna make it. If you fail, you know you're trying. And that's the thing, like, I never thought I was gonna finish school, but I know him for a couple of years, and that helped me a lot. And I'm grateful that he gave me the opportunity with the other teacher and the other people that believe in me. I'm very thankful, and that program helped a lot of people that they think they don't know what to do with school, or they failing. Mr. Baselli is like the second father they got in school to push them and make them believe in ourselves, that we can try and we can make all our goals be real. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Can I say something about this young man who is absolutely remarkable? And once we get a taste of money, we all want more money. And, that's a reality, and school is hard, and that's no joke. And this kid is passing all of his classes with high 80s, and he works every single day, and he comes in every single day, and he just plugs, and he knows what he has to do, and he stays on top of it, and he advocates for himself. And he originally thought he wanted to be a mechanic, and that's what he was going to do. And then he realized working every day in a garage wasn't what he wanted to do. I'm going to come back. And he found a program in New York that he's already applied to be an engineer, and he found an apartment in New York. So when he graduates, this is where this kid's going. He is a remarkable story. and he is an inspiration. And you wouldn't know him because he's a ghost in the hallway. He puts his head down, he does his work. It's just awesome. He's really an impressive young man. So thanks, Caesar. All right. Next is Evie Scarlett. Evie, why don't you take over, kiddo?
Yes. Hi. I take a lot of high level classes, and I struggle a lot with focusing and staying on task and keeping myself motivated. And so having a class, especially either at the beginning or the end of the day, it really helps for me to get anything done that I couldn't finish, because especially working at home, it's kind of difficult to stay focused at home when there's like my siblings and like the dog and stuff. That is much more exciting. So having the class helps me a lot with getting my work done and keeping myself on task, because having a specified time helps a lot for me, as well as advocating for myself, because sometimes I don't really feel comfortable with the teachers, so it's nice to have someone to go to that can talk to the teachers, like help me talk to the teachers. And this year I have a bit of a higher workload than usual, and for also at home, so it's definitely a lot harder for me. But having the class time and the resources and like the checking up really helps me stay focused and on task and get everything done well and keep my stress level low.
Thank you. Thank you, Evie.
Thank you, Evie. Evie takes a lot of high-level classes and puts a lot of stress on herself. She's remarkable. She's absolutely awesome, and it is completely hands-off with that kid. She's a superstar, and it's pretty impressive to watch her work. All right, so Shane, I don't know if he's still here or not, but Shane's microphone wasn't working, and he texted me, and I made the mistake of reading it earlier. And all right, so if I can make it through this. This is from Shane Hanlon. He's a junior. I just wanted to say that basically in 8th grade, I was just a young hyper kid that had trouble doing simple academic tasks, and I would drive my teachers crazy. Freshman year, I joined Mr. V's program and noticed good results in a short time halfway through my freshman year. I was a totally different student and began to improve my grades. Mr. V's program offers a safe and friendly environment to work in, and I know that Mr. V always has my back and is always trying to better his students each and every day. I'm a junior now, and I'm doing school to career through Mr. V's program, and I'm learning a lot about becoming an electrician, and to do that, I have to keep my grades up. So Mr. V's program gives me lots of time and space to get my work done. Mr. V will always tell you, chase your dream, and we'll support you no matter what, and has helped me become a better student and a better me. Shane Hanlon. I just would like to say thank you to Dr. Hallett. I know that last year you came in a lot, and we were able to sit and talk a lot about the program and what my vision was for it and what your hopes were for it. And to be able to do that with Mandy and Deb, you and I sat down and talked about it a little bit. And Jen, you and I have worked together since I got in the district, and I think it's kind of like a perfect cohesion because we have the same thoughts about kids and how we should work with kids, and just blessed to be able to work every day with the kids that I have. And, you know, it's a challenge for sure. But it's the best challenge you could ever have. And, you know, just want to say thank you to all your support. So thanks.
And Chairperson Croach, if I could just finish up for Mr. Fiscal and just thank him for all the work that he does. As you can see, he does a great deal of work with our students, and we very much appreciate what he does.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandy, for that. And thank you, Andrew. I'm going to pass it on to the school committee for comments. Zona, would you?
I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Vasselli. You know, I heard about Mr. Vasselli some years ago when my youngest, who is 22 now and class of 2017, mentioned to him and what he brought to her life. I wish we had enough Mr. V's to go around for everyone. I think everyone needs a space like that. There are those of us that don't realize we need that space, but to have it can only make you better. To Caesar, Evie, and Shane, thank you guys for being courageous enough to share your story with us. It was just, I could just feel the appreciation, you know, coming through the Zoom. And one day we can see each other, hopefully, and shake hands and hug again. But Mr. Vasselli, you keep on keeping on. There's a place for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zona. Tim, comments?
Oh, I think the students certainly reflect the work that Mr. Vasselli puts into them. And that's really a success story. And I'm so appreciative of the work that he's doing and encouraging these students to really take the bit and work themselves and become successful. So thanks again, Mr. Vasselli.
Thank you, Tim. Jen.
I would like to just echo what the other board members have said, but I'm so grateful that we have this program in the high school. And if the opportunity arises that we can expand to CPS and keep growing this program, I think it's so beneficial. And to hear from our students, I mean, that was very powerful. I'm so proud of your class and their hard work and their determination. And that comes from you and your encouragement and your dedication to them. And I'm very grateful for you and this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Steve?
Oh, where to start? Andrew, good to see you. It's been too long. I am impressed with the number of students you have involved. How many staff members do you have working with you? That's just a math question, Andrew, not a trick question. Just one. It's hard to believe. I mean, you're meeting your vision for sure. And I want to thank you especially for bringing these students tonight. I don't know Cesar, but I'm impressed. It's a great story that he's come back to school. I do know Shane. I had him in school. I do know Evie. I had her in school. And it's great to hear about their progress directly from them. So this program, like I think Zona said, we could use a few more of you, but it's awesome what you're doing with you and that other person. Thank you.
I have to be on, like, our
Steve.
staff, thank you, everyone who's spoken, Steve, thank you. Our staff at NHS is spectacular because they believe in what we're doing and they believe that the plan for each student is gonna work. And we wouldn't have the successes if those staff members, those teachers who are working directly with the kids in the classes weren't doing the work that they do, and especially during this terrible time. So, you know, my space offers them a space, and it, you know, it really is the entire staff who does all of it.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, Andrew, and I agree. It does, you know, it takes a team, but I've seen you in action and I've seen the students interact with you, and there couldn't be a more perfect person for the job that you do. And I always love you coming to present at school committee, and I love it when you bring your students. But I love it all the more that we have you in our district. And I wish I had had a Mr. V when I was in school. But thank you. And I love the fact that we get to work together as well and build boats. So I get to get it all sides, and I'm very grateful. So thank you, Andrew, very much. Okay. Gosh, I feel like we've just, okay. Okay, so moving on, I guess that was a good warm up for our budget presentations. I'd like to ask Kim Kubish, please. I'm going to say to the school committee that I'd like to just have all of our principals and directors run through their presentations, and we'd like to wait until the end for questions and comments, please.
Happy New Year, everyone. Should we do a 7th inning stretch, or does anybody need to do that? I often get the chance to be the first person to speak. So I hope I set the precedent here for the way this will go. I am under the impression that you have all had our budget packets to review prior to this evening, hopefully. And so I just would move quickly to the requests that we have from Nantucket Elementary School. Know that our requests have been discussed with our staff, our school council, and we have come down to these two things. We have had certainly meetings with Martin and Dr. Hallett, and I should start all of this by saying how grateful I am in this COVID year that the budget has been very kind to the elementary school. We have been able to hire staff that we desperately needed this year because we needed to have some teachers who would do remote teaching. So I do feel like in this year, we have more than we budgeted for last year, because those were needs that grew out of a pandemic. That being said, those positions are very important because in this budget, we are rolling forward where we are right now. Knowing our enrollment numbers and the history they've had for the 10 years I've been here, they don't modify that greatly. Kindergarten will be the one we will have to figure out at the end of this month. We'll hopefully get a vague idea of what kindergarten coming in next year will look like. All of that being said, we will not necessarily need to have 7 teachers at each grade level like we have right now. So we, as a school and as a school council, we made a request initially for an interventionist for math, and we had hoped to have a full-time interventionist. And as I said, with those remote teaching positions that will roll forward, we are asking only for a 0.5 interventionist at this point, but we do feel like we will be able to create the interventionist we're hoping for in a full-time way based on using our remote staff in a different way. The other item the other positions I've asked for are 2 TAs for kindergarten. And I know that you will recall last year, this was a big deal, and we were lucky enough that the school committee supported us in being able to hire additional TAs for kindergarten. The thing that has happened with the teaching assistants in the elementary school, and I would venture to say in all of our schools, we would like them to just be a kindergarten teaching assistant, which would be a general education assistant. However, the needs of students who have IEPs that often call for additional TA support have taken up those positions of extra kindergarten teaching assistants we had hoped to hire last year. So we filled the positions we were given and then ended up having to move them last summer before we were where we are, to go with specific students who had entered. So our hope is for this coming year that we won't be in our current situation, that we will be able to assign teaching assistants to the 2 kindergarten classrooms that currently don't have another adult in them. And then for us, as I said, to create at least a full-time interventionist while we're only asking for the funding for a half-time interventionist and the 2 kindergarten teaching assistants. That was what I was hoping to present, because you know that the bulk of the budget at Nantucket Elementary School is slated for payroll. So it's really 3% that we put into our supplies and books and travel and professional development services. So that is it. I think, I hope you found it sort of fun to see the pictures on the front. And we took these pictures to reflect what it looks like in our school when we have kids there in the time of Corona. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Okay, Eve Marie, would you like to go next, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. That was awesome. Listening to Andrew Viselli. I truly don't think there was a dry eye in the house. It was so emotional, but it was fantastic. I'm so glad I got to witness that. Thank you. So onward to our intermediate school budget. You can see our pictures showing we were still able to take a field trip to the old mill there, socially distanced, of course, and that was nice when we could provide that type of an opportunity. And you can see a student engaged actually in reading intervention. The teacher is walking around, but the actual program they're using is a virtual program to support our new environment of not being able to put a small group of students around a kidney table with the teacher really close by, and everybody talking and learning in that manner. So we're finding ways, and you can see in the bottom left corner what it looks like in the classrooms with our 6-foot distancing, and the teacher is over way in the back there, but because she also has students on the computer with her during that lesson. She had students engaged at home and in the classroom, and she definitely left her spot to walk around, but wanted to, when she was doing the actual teaching, she was projecting everything on the board so that all the kids could see it and the ones at home could see it as well on their screen. And then we have some of the work that's being completed when we are in person in class and posted. So those are some of the things we miss now. Students upload their work to Seesaw so their teachers can see it and their peers can see it, and even their families can see their work and have the opportunity to provide feedback, not only on sticky notes like that, but in comments. So we're learning all kinds of new tools in this virtual world. But so those are our photos. So moving along, this is no surprise to anybody. I think it's similar to each year, what percentage of the pie NIS takes. And so what we'll be asking, and that's not a surprise either. So here we go. These are the things that we're asking for. A full-time special education teacher at NIS. I worked with Deb Gately to assess our need for the coming school year. And we have operated at NIS at maximum capacity with regard to our teachers, and our special education TAs have really had to beg, borrow, and steal minutes to meet the minutes of all of our students. But they're very veteran. It's a very veteran team, and they're very skilled and adept at doing that. But we working with Deb, we looked at the students coming up to NIS and realized that this is the year that we need to add that additional special education teacher to support our second to third graders coming up, in addition to the students that will remain at NIS in next year in grades 4 and 5. And then, as Kim really did a wonderful job at describing the interventionist position and how it's noted as a 0.5 interventionist, and we're excited to add that. We feel like that, especially next year, we're going to need more skilled support with closing gaps and helping students. We have the same level of, let me think about how to phrase this. We have the same spectrum of students. Some students who are below grade level, some students are well above grade level, and everything in between. And it's typically that bell-shaped curve that you can imagine. But we've noticed this year, at least in the fall, and of course that was coming off of summer and also a spring that we were all figuring out what to do. But we noticed that that curve flattened, and there were a lot of students on the below average to low average end with regard to our MAP testing data. And we're not shocked by that, but we want to work as hard as we can and anticipate that need to work to fill those gaps that not everybody was able to access remote learning in the same way. It's just the fact of the matter. Some students have tremendous support at home, and some students struggle to learn at home. And we know that's true despite our very best efforts. So we really are interested in having another interventionist to work toward that end. Do you have any questions for me about those positions?
We're going to hold off on questions at the moment, Eve Marie.
All righty. And then otherwise, we didn't change anything with regard to line items, with the exception of natural increases that may have occurred, but nothing tremendous with shifting monies around.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eve Marie. Michael Horton, would you like to go next, please?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Proch. Here in the cover, starting in the top left, you will see Jennifer Bartleman, grade 6 science teacher, teaching in person, and you can note how far apart the students are. Top right, that's back in August, showing room 11 at CPS, how typical classrooms were set up in preparation for the return to school, that literally there's nothing in them other than the smart boards, the chairs, the desks, and the American flag. Maybe there's a trash can over there in the corner. In the lower left is Mark Ganella, grade 8 special education teacher. Back when we started in person hybrid in October, he brought in his beach chairs and held most of his classes outdoors, as you can see, which, at the time, everyone said that's the way to go. That's the best, air quality you can get, and that's the best disbursement you can get, and that's the safest situation you can get. So I applaud him for that creative act, and the weather cooperated. And then in the lower right, again, I got to put a plug in for the Nantucket Rotary Club that donated 250 backpacks to all 4 buildings. These are Rotarians, a couple administrators from the high school and the middle school, and a couple students standing 6 feet apart in front of the entrance at CPS. We did not assign lockers this year, so we've got backpacks care of the Nantucket Rotary Club to hand out where needed. Moving on, as Eve Marie pointed out, roughly each school is approximately the same 15, 16, 17%. That makes a lot of sense because if you break down our enrollment, they're roughly in the same ballpark, with the idea that NES probably has some higher expenses in the front end, and the high school has some higher expenses on the back end. Plus, I believe their enrollment is actually the highest of the 4 buildings. As it is with the other buildings, 97%, 96% of our budget is payroll, with a little sliver there for professional development, travel, and supplies and books. So it is a real gift. And I need to thank, school committee, select board, town of Nantucket, Libby Gibson, Brian Turbot administration and the taxpayers that in the middle of a pandemic, a first-year principal does not have to cut staff. The fact that our property values, as you heard, have boomed and skyrocketed, we are so fortunate that our tax base, our property tax base, has actually increased. Therefore, we can roll forward everything we have in place at the moment for next year. The one add we have to have is another encore teacher. You heard Mrs. Kubish talk about 7 sections in kindergarten. As the students get older, class sizes get slightly larger. So we typically have 6 sections at each grade level. And if you remember back in June when I presented the DREAM team model that we did not get to implement this year, in order to implement that team model next year, we need 6 encore teachers. So we need to hire 1 more encore teacher so that the 6 core teachers at each grade level can meet at the same time. So there's 6 different places those groups can go at any given block during the day. The last thing I just want to say is that in the line item in the orgs sections, you'll see that it is under instructional technology. That was where this position was last year. We turned that position into a grade 8 math science, a remote teacher, as Mrs. Kubish also alluded to. It's a real gift to be able to roll that position forward to ensure that team model. What is missing at CPS besides the students in person is common planning time for our teachers. And that is a must-have when you have at least 2 teachers at each grade level teaching the same subject. So they can plan together, they can assess together, they can design lessons, they can grade together, they can work on professional development, as well as implementing accommodations and modifications for EL and special ed students. So that position, even though it is a placeholder in instructional tech, on one hand, it makes sense that kids need more and more learning in technology. But as I sit here tonight and watch Mr. Viselli's presentation, that to be determined encore position, because I don't think I can bring myself to put kids in the front of computer screens any more than they currently are next year. Maybe it's a boat building class. Maybe it is a nursing class. Maybe it is something from 8th to 9th grade with the Innovation Pathway Program. Maybe it is more hands-on. That is something that the CPS School Council and the staff are brainstorming. We just don't want to commit to a definite topic at the moment. Maybe it is enrichment. So I believe that's my last slide.
Thank you, Michael. Mandy, would you like to go next, please?
Yes. Thank you, Chairperson Proch. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our school, and as much as I've learned about the school, it seems like I've been here a lot longer than 6 months, to be honest with you. And I just want to take one quick second and also say thank you to the Rotary Club for the backpacks. I know that we have students that could use them also. And I'm also really happy to, like Mr. Horton, that I'm not looking at a budget and going, where do I cut staff? I have in previous positions that has been something I've had to do, and it's always difficult because I think when we're looking at the needs for our students, it's really important to try to ensure that we have as much staff as possible and all resources that we can provide for them. One thing that you may notice when you looked at the high school budget is that line items may look a little different from last year to this year. We were able, working with our department leaders and our school council and Dr. Bahalit and Martin, we were able to take a look at the line items that we had, and we shifted numbers a little bit from one line item to another within departments so that we could better utilize the resources that we have, particularly taking into consideration the circumstances that we're in for school, and we don't know if, we could be like this next year. So we're trying to plan ahead for that. We didn't have to ask for a lot of additional funds. What we are specifically asking for is that we add a teaching assistant, and that we have funds for textbooks. And I'll speak to the teaching assistant. What we're looking for and what we anticipate is based on enrollment numbers, that our special ed numbers will increase next year, and we expect to have additional students in our IDSC program next year. So we are looking for an additional teaching assistant to help support all of our students in our inclusion classes, as well as the IDSC program. As far as the textbooks, we are looking to fund textbooks for the science department. It's been 10 years since those textbooks have been updated. And the books that we have now, primarily what the teachers are using is they are using online resources, but after this year, the online resources will not support the text that we have currently. So we were able to carve out $10,000 ourselves. And so we're asking for an additional $10,000 to have a $20,000 line item for those textbooks. As you can imagine, textbooks are quite expensive. What we're anticipating is that we would add online resources that would be renewable every 6 years. So that, we would get quite a bit from our resources that way. And that's all that we're looking to increase is $42,000.
Great. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelly Cooney, would you like to go next?
Hello, absolutely. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all. Happy New Year. Let's see. So, in planning for the English learner department next year, we were really thinking about the needs of our students and the needs of teachers as well, and meeting the needs of our multilingual students who will require extra supports as we move to recovery from this global pandemic. So in order to support teachers in implementing sheltered English immersion practices at CPS and NHS, I am requesting an SEI coach. And the SEI coach will help teachers to plan for the development of academic language in the discipline areas, because each content area has its own disciplinary literacy. And so in order to help to accelerate the learning of our English learners, who data show at both CPS and NHS, the subgroups are like 30th percentile in the state, meaning that compared to other, the same exact kinds of students in other districts, we rank in the 30th percentile, which isn't really all of that great. And that was pre-COVID. The hope is that an SEI coach will help our teachers to be able to better meet the needs of our students. Additionally, one small area that I'm asking for an increase in is in the tech line. This year, we were really fortunate to be allotted some of the CARES Act funds to purchase a program for elementary English learners. It's called Imagine Learning, and it's a really neat program. It meets students where they are in their literacy, and it provides mini lessons and also assessment and data for teachers to be able to see where the students are. But it's also a program where the kids log in and there is a little animated cartoon that gives lessons. And then there's actual real human videos as well. And the kids are really enjoying it. It also provides support in, I think, 30 languages to families and to students. So the kids are really excited when they speak their language. So we were lucky to have some of the allotment from the CARES Act. And we see that the students really enjoy the program, that it's helping with their literacy development. So in order to be able to support that program, I'm asking for a $5,000 increase to the tech line. And then I'll use my already budgeted tech line to be able to keep that program for kids as a supplement to their learning, also to help them to be able to catch up after this global pandemic because we know that English learners and children of color are lagging further behind regular ed students. And that's it. I kept it short and sweet.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Thank you for your work. I'd like to invite Deborah Gately, please, to present next.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Here I go. So the special services budget makes up about 21% of the school committee budget. And as you can see, we have a variety of funding sources that do support our department in special services. In addition to school committee budget, I'm currently maintaining 5 different grants from the Department of Education that also assists us in doing what we're doing. But as far as next year is concerned, one of the things I just want to preface my remarks with is just the sincere appreciation that I have for the collaboration that I've been able to establish and maintain with not only building administrators, but teachers as well within the buildings. For the past 4.5 months, I've been on a fact-finding mission. I've been trying to decipher what is the overall need, what is working. Clearly, Andrew Pacelli's program is an indicator of what works. But again, it's looking at our infrastructure. So you'll notice in terms of the positions or the requests that are made in the budget, these were all very well informed based on the needs that currently exist within our infrastructure. There's going to be, and there has been a lot of discussion, and there's going to be a lot of continued discussion about some reorganization. So it's not necessarily good news because special ed does constitute a lot of the budget. There's not going to be additional funding being sought. It's just going to be the reallocation of how we're doing things within the department to get the most effectiveness for it. But to speak to what Mandy and Eve Marie have already spoken to with regards to the positions that they're asking for within their budget, there is going to be, reorganization of looking at programming and how staff is utilized. And I look forward to working with both Eve Marie and Mandy in building that capacity. Because one of the things that I've noticed pre-K through post-grad is, again, just the continuity of programming and the analysis of programming of services that we're providing to kids, that just to create a more equitable distribution, I guess, is where I'm coming from on that. In terms of the actual position that I'm seeking that would be district-wide is the 0.8 special education interpreter. And I do want to acknowledge the fact that the work that's been done by the interpreters within the district this year has been amazing. But the reality is that we have a need for compliance within the department to be able to meet for our parent communications. There's a lot of creativity that occurs within the district, but to have a dedicated interpreter would mean just a huge amount and take a heavy lift or a heavy load off of our district-based interpreters, because they're needed district-wide. But within special education especially, 16% of our students with disabilities are currently qualified also as dually qualified English language learners. And the provision of these services is a federal and state mandate to have interpretive services available. And that also, in terms of my bigger picture of strengthening the IEP process, is being able to have the ability to communicate with parents from the very beginning of the process and to inform them of everything that's going along so that they feel as part of it. We are very fortunate, and one of our team chairs that was hired for this year is bilingual. She works at NES. So that's also alleviated some of this. But in terms of what we're currently spending beyond the use of the district interpretive services, is that we're somewhere in the vicinity of about $10,000. And that was likely going to exceed just on recent needs that we have that we're contracting with outside interpretive services. So to have someone within the district that understands the district, that understands the town, that understands our families would be our eventual goal on that. I did want to just mention, without necessarily getting to a whole lot of detail with this, that within the packet that was provided to you in terms of the rationale, that I did list some future considerations. Again, my mind is turning all the time. My conversations are turning all the time. And all of the building leadership, all of the district leadership team members know that my eventual goal is to decrease our out of district budget and bring at least 3 kids back within the next 2 years. And so that's a little bit of a preview to the following year's budget. But that's something that I'm also actively working on because of the need to let Nantucket kids stay in Nantucket. That's my goal. And that's really what our focus is. But it's also continuing to work with the schools to strengthen, as I said, our infrastructure to allow that to happen. So that's all that I had to say on that.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great to have you on board. Okay, I'd like to turn it over to school committee now for questions and comments. Zona, would you like to go first?
If I may, please excuse the interruption.
Yes.
I actually have one more item that I need to share. It is not part of this, but it is a central office budget request. You did not get anything in particular on this. Normally that's, it's done a little differently, but we would like to add, and in speaking with the curriculum directors and the administrative and district leadership team, we would like to add an education technology specialist who will work with all 4 schools to assist and to support teachers and staff and administration in the incredible number of educational technology offerings that we've had to implement this year with very limited support. And I know for a fact that this person this role that we have will go very well used, and I think this position is highly needed, especially as we move forward. We know that we'll be relying more on educational technology. So that's all. There's one additional request, and that is approximately $80,000. So that is an additional piece that we wanted to make sure you knew about. Thank you. Excuse me.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you. Okay, Zona, back to you.
I just want to ask, was that, remember when the town was on earlier that said that everything was included? Is that new figure you just mentioned included, Beth?
Yes,
okay.
All of that is included, yes.
I don't have any questions. As always, the presentations were very thorough. I like the summary that we do. It kind of, helps us grasp everything very clearly. So well done, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zona. Tim.
I have a question. If we had a dramatic change in enrollment, let's say that not everybody comes back from vacation, but if we went down 100 students, how would that affect our budget, do you think? It's probably directed more at Beth.
How would that affect our budget? We would certainly have to look carefully at the needs that we had and what we had available to us, and how we could either redistribute or how we could also make sure that we are supporting the children that we do have with additional opportunity. Martin, you can certainly continue with this. I know you had your hand up, so I'm sure you want to jump in with us if you're interested. So.
Good evening and Happy New Year to everyone. It's the budget would stay the same. Like Beth said, it's not conditioned on enrollment for us. It's a budget that we keep, and then we can have further discussions. Obviously, they will happen on administrative level between Superintendent Dr. Hallett and everybody else involved for priorities within the district. So that's how it would work. But we don't have any conditions attached as far as enrollment goes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Jen.
No questions. I just want to thank the administrators and school councils for working hard to put this together. I understand that things can change, but I appreciate the hard work that you guys have put into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Steve?
Yeah, a couple of quick comments. I mean, ditto on the thanks. The format really has improved over the years, and these are so comprehensible. When I read through them, it was clear what was going on, and that is great. And I thank you for all of that. I had one little question for Kim. I think you mentioned that you were able to add some staff this year. How many people were you able to add? I mean, I'm delighted to hear it. I just didn't know.
Okay, so I'd have to go back and count. But what I would tell you is we have a remote teacher. So we were always 6 deep at each grade level. We had a remote teacher who is doing kindergarten and first grade. She's doing them combined because the numbers are around 20. And then we have a second grade teacher who is a remote teacher, and she also has 20 second graders. We hired a TA to support one of our pre-Ks. And I think there may be one other, but so Steve, I'm answering that off the cuff right now, and I can certainly shoot you an email tomorrow with the exact specifics around that, but
a curiosity question, and I was glad to hear it. I mean, I'm a great believer that you've got to have bodies with students. I used to say in front of students. I don't know if that's what we're doing anymore, but the more bodies, the better. And I'm not, I have to be careful how I word this. I'm glad to see that we're able to add some positions. But my comment, which is really for another day when we get into this budget, is we need more. I know you people are doing what you can, but we need more. Our kids have lost so much and will have. I mean, there's no question that we'll be in some type of remote, hybrid, etc., into March at the rate this virus is going, which means we will have been that way for a full year, which means their education has been impacted negatively for a full year. And the only way we're going to be able to start catching up is by adding more help. As I said, that's a conversation for another day, but I want it out there. I appreciate what you all are doing, and I want you to have more.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I don't have any questions, but just comments. Thank you again for a concise, thorough presentation. And it's clear to me that you've been collaborating, discussing, and planning, and it's been a team effort. So thank you very much. Okay, moving on. I would like to move to the committee discussion and votes to be taken, please. I'd like an approval, please, for the donation from Liz Holland and Highline Cruises for the Adopt a Lunch program for the amount of $215. May I have a motion?
So moved, Zona Butler.
Thank you, Zona. Janella, second. Thank you. Steve, may I have your vote?
Sorry, my thumb wasn't working. Yes.
Okay, great. Zona?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
And Tim?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And Pauline, aye. I'd like an approval, please, for the donation of the trustees of the Admiral Sir Isaac Coffin Lancasterian School for the NHS 2021 class for $5,000. May I have approval?
So moved, Zona Butler.
Thank you, Zona. Second, please.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Jen, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And Zona?
Aye.
Thank you. And Pauline, aye.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, you may not participate in that vote.
I can for the Isaac Coffin. It's the next one coming up. I won't.
As the representative of Egan Maritime.
Yes, I agree. For the one coming up, but not for the one that we just did. That's not Egan. Is that what you meant? I'm recusing myself of the one coming up, which is Egan Maritime. And it is a donation from Egan Maritime Institute for the CPS gift account for maritime studies in the amount of $19,298. May I have a motion to approve?
I
So
move to
moved, Zona
approve.
Butler.
Thank you, Steve, and second from Zona. Thank you. Tim, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Thank you, Zona.
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Thank you, Jen.
Aye.
Thank you, and I am recusing from that. May I have a approval, please, for the donation of the Jean F. and David G. Nathan Fund to the Nantucket Community School Community Pool for $250.
Move approval.
Thank you, Tim. May I have a second? Thank you, Zona. Jen, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Zona?
Aye.
And Tim?
Aye.
Thank you, and Pauline, aye. Looking for an approval, please, for the donation from the First Congregational Church to Nantucket Community School recognition of service for $500.
So
Move to
moved, Zona
approve.
Butler.
Thank you, Zona. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Jen, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Thank you, Tim.
Aye.
Thank you, Zona.
Aye.
Thank you, and where am I? Lost. Jen, I think, or Steve.
Aye.
Thank you. And Pauline, aye. We have a vote to approve the amendment to the policy IJNDD, the social media. May I have a approval, please?
Move approval.
Move approval. Tim, may I have a second?
Zona Butler, second.
Okay.
Zona Butler,
Did
second.
we receive, this would be the time for discussion, right?
Yes, it would. Yes, correct.
Did we receive a copy of that? Did I not scroll down far enough?
We did. It was in the packet, and it was a highlight that had a lot of yellow highlights on it.
All right, could we just have a second for me to have a look at that again? I do not recall seeing that.
Let's see where it is in my packet. It is right after the donation, Steve. It's page 73 of 84.
Now, that explains part of it. I just did. Is it after the minutes?
Nope, before the minutes. It's right after the community school.
Oh, okay, okay.
Foundation.
No, I've got it now. And I'm taking a second to read it, and I apologize. I thought I had read all of this.
Well, Steve, for you to say you haven't read something is unusual. So,
Well, and you know from our last discussion that this one was important to me. So
Take a moment, Steve. Go right ahead.
I have to get my reading glasses on too. It's so small. Can I just ask the committee, the subcommittee, has the threat of, see, I still think there's a significant First Amendment problem with this, but I'm equally concerned about the threat of disciplinary action if people make a mistake with this. I think our teachers are working so hard, teaching assistants, everyone, that we at this time especially should not be threatening disciplinary action for comments that they are making about schools. I also think it's in direct conflict, and I did go back and look at the language in the teacher contract, and it's in direct conflict with language there that says, in effect, they're allowed to say what they think is in the best interest of their students. So I would like to just delete this paragraph or write it in such a way. I don't have a problem with reminding people that they ought not to be using their school media to do much of this. But I do mind the fact that they're being threatened inconsistently with the First Amendment, their contract, and it's just not right to be threatening disciplinary action for free speech. So,
Steve, I'm going to go to Beth. She has her hand raised. Beth?
I just muted myself. If I may, just a few things. First of all, this is the policy that the subcommittee met about after our previous meeting. And we went through this carefully piece by piece. We had the language vetted carefully with our legal counsel. And we also asked specifically about the content language that Mr. Sordovic just mentioned, and there is no infraction whatsoever. It's a very different piece. This policy is not meant to threaten discipline. This is meant to also protect teachers so that they understand what constitutes First Amendment rights. So there is really no need for this. And the subcommittee determined after that meeting that they wanted to move forward with this as it was.
So in sum, you're saying threatening discipline protects the First Amendment. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. And lawyers will differ. And being one, here I am differing with the one that you've said says this is okay. I just don't think there's any need for it. And I think it sends the wrong message to our staff at a very difficult time. So I think this paragraph should be removed. If not, I don't want to eliminate the entire concept of being careful with social media. If it would perform the task better, I will follow the Roberts rules of order and make a motion to dismiss or eliminate this paragraph and approve the rest.
That would need a second to have discussion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so for discussion, I'll put that out to the committee at the suggestion of removing that paragraph. And I would turn to Zona and Jen, as they are the subcommittee that did take this back a second time and did go through and got counsel on that. Any comments?
Well, if I may say, I'd be happy
Steve.
to work with them on that.
Well,
I think
Steve,
there
hold on.
is some valuable structure in this. It's just those 2 or 3 little things that if they were removed, this would all be fine. And I'd be happy to work on that with them.
I understand that, Steve. I think if we've got this second, we need to see if there's any discussion, and then we'll vote the amendment. And if we do not get that passed, we'll go back to the original motion. So not hearing any discussion on the amendment.
Discussion.
Okay, thank you,
I do
Zona.
not agree with amending it. I think the language is stated very clearly and general enough to just guide people to be careful what they say and what they talk about on social media. In a small community like this, you have some loose cannons, and there have already been some postings that were felt to be inappropriate. The language says may. It doesn't say will and all that sort of stuff. It just says think before you speak, think before you post. Don't, put names on social media and you can't take it back type thing. We've seen all the stuff that's all the scuttlebutt and things that have gone out regarding COVID, and you have people with strong opinions, and everybody's entitled. We're just asking, if you represent our school in any way, shape, or form, this is what the policy applies to, that you just think carefully before you put something out there that you or the school may have problem with. I think it should be approved as presented, with one exception. At the end, we had changed the director of technology to administration. That's just one edit that needs to be made, and that we put this in place. Now, just like any other policy, we can revisit it at some point in time, but we need a policy in place. And at this moment in time, Dr. Hallett, board member Jennifer Iller, and myself, Zona Butler, we were in agreement, and we felt that we had it vetted through our legal counsel, and we presented it the way we did.
Thank you, Zona. Any other discussion on this amendment before we take a vote for the amended motion? Seeing none, we are taking a vote currently for the amended motion that Steve made of removing the section within the original, sorry, I've lost my word, but original policy. So Zona, your vote, please, for the amendment.
I vote against the amendment.
Thank you, Jen. I can't hear you. Sorry, you're muted.
I vote against the amendment.
Thank you. Tim Lepre.
I'll vote against the amendment.
Thank you. Steve?
Out on the ledge again. I'm in favor of the amendment.
Okay, and I will vote against the amendment. So the amendment did not pass. We still have out as a seconded motion to approve the policy. And did I hear you, Zona, that you want to make an amendment to that with the language?
Yeah.
Would you like to
The
add
last paragraph where it says the director of technology should be administration will periodically conduct searches.
Thank you, Zona.
You're welcome.
that? Okay, so I have that amendment. May I have a second on the amendment?
Second.
Thank you, Jen. Any discussion on that amendment? Hearing none and seeing none. May I have your vote, Zona?
Aye.
Tim, may I have your vote?
Aye, please.
Thank you, Jen.
Aye.
Thank you, Steve.
This is on the amendment Zona just talked about.
Correct.
Aye.
Thank you. And Pauline, aye. Thank you, everyone. Moving on, we have the workshop meeting minutes.
Wait a
Please,
minute,
I'd like
we have to vote on the policy still. We voted on 2 amendments, but not the policy overall.
I thought we had voted on it with the amendment. Well,
Yeah.
we can, right?
We did. That was the vote on the
That was
policy,
it.
Steve.
That was, we had already had a second on the amendment, and then we had no discussion on the second amendment, and we went for the vote that was already out on the floor. So that.
All right, I was confused. I vote against the policy.
Thank you,
Just
Steve.
to be clear,
Okay.
I thought we were voting on Zona's change that she just mentioned.
No, well, it was, but it was included in the vote that was already open. So Logan, if you would note that for the minutes, please. Thank you. We have workshop minute meetings. If I could have approval, please, for November 24th, 2020.
So moved, Zona
Thank
Butler.
you, Zona. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. May I have your vote, Jen?
Aye.
Thank you, Tim.
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Zona?
Aye.
And Pauline, aye. Thank you. And transfers and invoices. May I have approval, please?
So move Zona Butler.
Thank you, Zona. May I have a second?
Yes,
Second.
second.
Tim, thank you. May I have your vote, Steve?
Yes.
Thank you, Jen.
Aye.
Thank you, Zona.
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
thank you both, and Pauline, aye. Okay, moving on to subcommittee work groups. Who would like to, let me ask Zona if you've got any updates on clearly the policy committee's been meeting, but do you have any other updates?
The Cape Collaborative, we are planning the legislative breakfast for sometime in February. I believe it's February 25th. So keep your ears and eyes out for that. It's pretty interesting. It's going to be Zoom, and I'm helping organize it this year. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm really appreciative of you sticking with that because truly it's important, and I appreciate
I missed the free suppers though.
Oh, I love it. Tim, do you have any updates?
No.
No. Okay. Jen, do you have any updates?
No.
No. Steve, updates?
Oh, I have a shout out, if this is the right time, to
Go ahead.
Becky Miller and whoever else helped organize and run the December Delight auction. It was delightful. It's my understanding also, I saw Becky afterwards, that they raised an awful lot of money, perhaps not a record amount. And I acknowledge it's not the same as having an in-person December Delight, but the auction was so well run, had so many fun and interesting items. I got one of the two things I was bidding on. One of them got out of my budget range. But I showed out to Becky. I mean, amidst and among everything else she does at the NHA, to be able to put this together, I wish I knew the names of the other people, but I hope she'll pass along to everyone involved how appreciative we are of the work they did and the money they raised for the senior class. It was great.
Terrific. Thank you for supporting the class.
If I may, through the chair. It was
Yes.
Eleanor Antonetti, Tracy Halleck, Rebecca Miller, and Rebecca Hickman. They were the pinpoint people, plus the senior advisor, Paul Bucheri, and
Thank
Mandy
you,
Basil.
Logan. Really appreciative of all of the work they did.
Do they have a final tally on it yet?
Martin probably knows, but I think they made $30,000+.
Oh, I thought it might have been a little
Online year.
40 actually, but Martin, do you know?
I have not heard yet. I'll check tomorrow and I'll update the committee once I have the final figure.
Thank you.
That's terrific. Thank you. Any other shout outs or any other comments? We don't have our student council. She's tonight participating in a swim meet, so we wish her luck. Agenda for the next meeting, January 15th. Beth, anything that you want to say on this? But the budget public hearing, which is on the 15th. So that will be,
Yes.
yeah.
That is
okay.
our next meeting, so we will be, we'll have a public meeting, but budget hearing. So that's
And
our
that's at 6, that's 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, Friday, January 15th.
Great, thank you. And the time for our FinCom presentation on the 19th?
I believe it's also 6 o'clock, but Logan, you may be able to tell me if that's correct or not. 6:30, we don't know.
Don't know yet, okay.
Would there be a way for us to watch that as well? Is that a Zoom presentation to which we'll receive an invite?
Most
The
likely.
FinCom team, yes. FinCom, yes, it will be.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so. Yes.
Yep. And typically we don't speak. It's the superintendent and then Martin if needed. But rarely are we required to speak.
Oh,
It's
no,
with
I
the-
understand. And if we speak,
Yep.
it could turn it into a school committee meeting. But I wanted to follow the proceedings.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we'll get an invitation via Zoom. Yep. Okay, anybody have any other comments or anything before we adjourn? Seeing none and hearing none, may I have approval to adjourn, please?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Donna Butler.
Thank you, Zona, and Steve second. And may I have your vote, Janilla?
Aye.
Thank you, Tim. Tim Larry?
Did he leave?
Maybe.
Aye.
Did he leave already?
No, that was, there you are. Thank you.
Going.
Zona Butler,
Aye.
Jen, Steve.
Aye and bye.
Thank you, and Pauline. Aye. Good night, everybody.